Okay, folks, I can see we've hit 1 minute after the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Matt Thomas, and thank you for tuning into the USGS Landslide Hazards Seminar. This meeting is hosted by the Landslide Hazards Program and co-organized with contributions from Stephen Slaughter and Jamie Kostelnik. For those of you that are new to this meeting, you have the ability to submit questions via the chat window or to use the raise your hand feature in combination with your microphone and video camera. We're going to wait until the end of today's presentation to take questions. So in the meantime, please just do your best to make sure your microphone is muted and your video camera is off when you're not intending to speak. Today, we are hosting another installment of a mini-series where we hear from our state surveys. These talks provide an overview of state landslide experience, focus areas, product types, and introduce some of the most pressing landslide-related problems that our states face. If you'd like to have your state landslide work spotlighted as part of this mini-series, please shoot myself, Stephen, or Jamie Kostelnik an email, and we can get you on the schedule. Today, we're joined by Martha Copper. She is a registered professional geologist in Missouri and Arkansas. She received her BS in geology from Southeast Missouri State University, her MS in geology from Wichita State University, and is currently working towards an MS in geological engineering at the Missouri University of Sciences and Technology. She serves with the Arkansas Geological Survey as a geology supervisor, focusing on landslide and earthquake geohazard research. At the present time, she is working with local, regional, county, state, and federal organizations and landowners to develop a landslide geodatabase across Arkansas with assistance through 2 grants. Findings from this work will be summarized in an all hazard mitigation plans for areas covered by the grants. And as part of those grants, she's working with MS and PhD graduate students whose interests lie with landslides. She's also the chairperson for Arkansas's Governor's Earthquake Advisory Council and works closely with the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management and the Central United States Earthquake Consortium. She also manages a multi-state induced landslide seismicity earthquake grant and has served on the Association of Engineering and Environmental Geologists National Board and is a member of the Seismological Society of America and American Society of Engineers. A lot of accomplishments to list there, Martha. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'll go ahead and give it over to you.
Thanks very much. So thanks for the opportunity to present our program. So wanted to start off with what our program consists of. We have a federal emergency grant that we received. It's a 2-3-year grant totaling about $65,000 with a potential for future FEMA funding. We're also funded with general revenue and some funding from the Oil and Gas Commission. Our program staffing consists of myself, a staff geologist who's assigned, some other support staff, some interns, and an extra help geologist paid through the FEMA grant. So I'm going to list out several projects that we're currently working on. Some of these we've just recently completed, so we'll just do these relatively quick. So first off, I'm working with a master's student with the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. This master's project was developed in association with the Arkansas Department of Transportation engineer. And part of it was funded through the RDOT research money that they had set aside. And it's located in Independence County, which is kind of in the northeast part of the state. And we're working this project, we're working with the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville and their CAST, our Center for Advanced Spatial Studies Technologies, and also the Department of Engineering. And we're also working with University of Missouri Science and Technology, University of California at Berkeley, and the Arkansas Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism. And here is the project site. So I have a pink cursor here. So the Highway Department has put in somewhat of a mitigation retaining wall here. And I'll show you that here in just a second. So this is about, I don't know, half a mile long. They put this mitigation in because the hillside was failing. And the master's project is essentially flying a drone with centimeter resolution LiDAR over this area that I'm kind of highlighting in here. As you can see, this is an old landslide here, as well as actually pretty much this whole slope. I'm going to explain the geology to you as well. So approximately here is where this elevation here is where the Fayetteville Shale contact is. And above there is what's called the pit, and so let's advance this. I wanted to point this point out right here. This is part of the Pitkin. It is it's karst. This is a sinkhole actually here. And then back over here is a cave. And the reason we're working with the Department of Parks is because this cave has some endangered species in it. So this is part of their area that's susceptible to. So this is the mitigation, similar to what the highway department is putting in. They put in rails and then sheet metal in here to the Batesville Formation, and it essentially prevents or holds back some of the slide. So this is the Pitkin Formation, which overlies the Fayetteville. So the Pitkin is a limestone, and this is the formation that the cave system is in. This is the Fayetteville Formation, so you can see a lot of jetting. So what we believe one of the triggers for this landslide is the cave system percolating groundwater through these fractures and joints in the Fayetteville. Fayetteville is a shale. And here's some of the tilting trees. Another thing I found was right after a rain, we went up there and looked to see that the roots were providing an avenue for the groundwater to percolate through that landslide. So as I mentioned, the cast flew a drone with centimeter resolution to deter over 3 flights over 2 years, process it down to bare earth. Got the digital elevation and slope models, and what the master student, I'm working with him to determine the elevation difference between the 3 flights to determine the slope movement. Essentially, the highway department wants to determine the rate of movement. So here's their setup. Pretty incredible here. And this is the first iteration of the calculations. So we had some problems with some of the LIDAR because these white areas are areas where the LIDAR did not actually reach bare earth because I believe the bluffs were like just really vertical and it wasn't able to reach. This area is just heavily forested. So the next project we finished this project. So the Arkansas Department of Parks, Heritage and Tourism, they have this mission to establish a really nice bike trail system throughout the state. And they had a consultant who contacted us and they wanted us to help them map out all the landslides. And this is in a park called Mount Magazine. And so it is located in western Arkansas. Here it is in Logan County. And I want to explain the stratigraphy of the area. So we'll see a common theme throughout here. In the areas that we're mapping, it's mainly shales. So this particular section is within the state park, but it does not extend farther away from the area. But at any rate, we have the McAllister. There's some small coal seams in the Hartshorn and McAllister, but below there we have the Atoka. And then north of the state park, we have the Bloyd. Anywhere where we see blue, it's going to be shale. The Atoka is a series of 3 benches of sandstone separated by shales, and it is very susceptible to failure. So as you can see, the state park is this greenish area. So this is the somewhat substantial sandstone on the top, and then the Atoka is this bluish gray around here, and then the Bloyd is this purple color in here. So here is some LiDAR from the top. So that this would be the McAllister, and below here is the Atoka. So you can see some flow, a lot of mass movement on these slopes. This is 1 meter LiDAR. The second Department of Parks Heritage and Tourism project was a landslide at their headquarters. So off to the left here, you can see their main building. It's right on the edge of this bluff. This is here where my cursor is where the scarp for this landslide is evident. So I pulled up the 1 meter LiDAR, and you kind of see where this landslide is. This is on the Jack Fork Sandstone Formation. This particular formation is dipping very steeply. So this is a dip slope scenario. It's dipping at like 45 degrees. And this is right along the Arkansas River, pretty near downtown Arkansas, so it's in the center part of the state. Here are some trees that are leaning. Here you can kind of see the dip slope here. And I was asked by the folks there at the agency to come and take evaluation, take a look at and I wrote up a paper for them to provide to their engineer, their contracted engineers. And I noticed that they had drainage or downspouts all along the backside of this building. So I made that in my recommendation. So a third project is working with the U.S. Forest Service. One particular landslide we looked at was Shoal Creek. It's just north of Mount Magazine, where we just looked at a while ago. We're sharing shape files with the Forest Service, and they have shared with us shape files of their managed timber stands. And so we're going to be evaluating that as well at some point. So here's the Shoal Creek landslide up here. It's within the Atoka Formation. So this is a Forest Service land here. This landslide we're talking about is right here. And so that's 2017 LiDAR. This is a 2019 Google Earth, so you can kind of see this older footprint. This is 2020, and it was kind of funny. The landslide left a little island here in the center, and it completely destroyed the road, the U.S. Forest Service road, and in addition to which it backed up the lake and formed a little lake there. So here we have drone pilots, licensed drone pilots, and we went out and they took some photographs, and we mosaicked it and overlaid it on top of the LiDAR to see the size change in the landslide. And it's about almost a 7-acre increase in size of the footprint of the landslide. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing an analysis with the U.S. Forest Service shapefiles with regards to where they've cut down the trees, where they've done controlled burns, to see if there's any sort of a relationship between the landslides and their management. The next project we're working on is with Arkansas Department of Transportation. We looked at a landslide out near Ozark, Arkansas. It's kind of interesting that the Highway Department has spent over $50 million over a 5-year period in landslide repair. They've been doing an inventory themselves on not only the landslides they've repaired, but also future work that they have. In speaking with the engineer that I'm working with there, he goes, "This is my lifelong mission, is to rid the state of landslides along the highway corridor." So of course, we're sharing the inventory shapefiles with them, and we've also give presentations at their research conference. So here is the Ozark landslide. Right here, it's kind of in the western part of the state. And what happened here is when they first designed and built 40 through here, it was a little hilly. So what they did was a cut and fill. And so the fill now acts like a bathtub. And of course, this is on susceptible shales. And so what's happening is the shales are filling up with water, and then the pore pressure changes within the material, loses its strength. And so what they have talked about is putting in drains there to reduce the pore pressure. Some other projects are, as I mentioned, we're working with the Highway Department on the Master's project, and also inclinometer installation. So here we are working with them on installing an inclinometer along a highway right away. So this particular project at Greer's Ferry Lake is very interesting. It's I can see me really getting involved in this. So Greer's Ferry Lake Watershed, it's a lake. It's about a 30,000 acre lake, and we've mapped part of it, part of the geology. A lot of mass wasting, and we've been working closely with property owners, water districts, and the state and local health department, the sanitarians, and county managers, the Office of Emergency Management, and their regional planning districts. So we're not done mapping, but all the red dots are landslides that we've identified. Surprisingly, maybe not, there's a fault that runs right through the lake, and this I'm mentioning this because this is an area of the Fayetteville Shale Play, which is an area where actually Arkansas was one of the first two in the nation to associate induced seismicity with earthquakes with deep well injection. And so this is one of the areas where some of the earthquakes were running in through here. So we're going to focus in on an area right down here. This is called the Fairfield Bay Quadrangle. So again, here's the geology. Again, the Atoka is present, the Bloyd is present, and both the Atoka and the Bloyd is shale as well, silty shale lithology. And again, we're going to move down here. This light blue is going to be the lake itself. So we're going to again focus in on this landslide right here. So the purple is the Bloyd, the light blue is the Atoka. And here is what we're going to be talking about. So this house was pretty well uninhabitable after this happened. So this occurred within the Bloyd. As you can see, the house is pretty much uninhabitable. And the reason why I have this picture in the lower right is because I want to point out to you this little for sale sign. So what happened with this house is the road was there, but the house, when they built the house, they decided to build this road and wrap it around the back of the house. And I'll show you this in a minute. Let me fast forward this. So they decided to wrap this road back around the back side of the house, which caused the entire slope to fail. So here's the house here, and I'll back up a little bit here. So that's the road coming in. And I went out there last week and, wanted to look a little more depth at what's going on. So as you can see where my pink cursor is here and here, this is the scarp, the head scarp. And I got to looking around at like, what is this drain line here? And I kicked this, and this is a septic system. So, that made me think about some needs to visit with the state and local sanitarian about these. So here's pictures of some of the extent of the the landslide, pretty large, a lot of water contribution from above. You can see some translational movement here. So this is the area in 1994. You can see it was pretty old and probably pre-existing. And here's 2000. So this road was present there, and the road in the back had not been put in yet. And here it is in 2006. It happened in March of 2005. Here is the 1 meter LiDAR of this landslide. So you can see it goes way up into the Atoka and just carries on down through the Bloyd. And so one thing I wanted to point out is looks like there were probably a couple things. This landslide looks like it comes down pretty much to the left side of the house, and may have had a couple of movements here where the cursor is here. It looks like this may have been a separate movement there. So what I wanted to mention on this particular site here is we had visited with the county judge or the county administrator in like 2016. He had invited us out to look at these landslides across around the lake. And he told us of a story about a family. There were 5 kids, parents died, kids wanted their money out of the parents had 200 acres around the lake, and they were all in very steep lots, and the kids wanted to auction off these lots in 1 and 2 acre lots. And when I went out there, I saw lot 36 was literally in a landslide, and his hands were tied. The county judge's hands were tied because the county does not require construction permits. So that was quite interesting. I had a chance to visit with the local sanitarian there, and also the state health department, the septic folks, and they had indicated to me that typically what they do is require these homes, the septic systems, to be built on the front of the house because people want the back of the house for the view. And so the septic system provides additional water into the slope. So I think that's something that we need to have future conversation with the health department and the way they encourage and locate their septic systems. I'm going to be setting up a public meeting with the county elected officials, the county office of emergency management, and the planning districts for an overall to educate people on the spatial distribution of these slides. I did have an occasion to visit with the people who own this house here. They want to move back into this house. The local water department will not connect their water. So in order to be able to live in the house, of course, they've got to have water, and I'm not sure where they're going to put their septic system. So in addition to that, I also talked to the individual who bought this property just to the left side of this house. And this person was from out of state, bought this property sight unseen, not knowing it had landslides. And now I believe there's going to be a lawsuit on that purchase. So next, I'm going to talk about Lake Fort Smith Watershed. So we became familiar with this landslide from the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management. In December 2015, there was a large rain event, and a landslide occurred just below this high hazard dam. And so we went out there to look at it. What we found was that after we inventoried everything, there was about 41% of the acreage was involved in mass wasting. Here's the dam. This watershed is in the western part of the state near Fort Smith. So we're looking at the dam and we're looking to the east. So there's the water intake. Down here on the bottom is the emergency spillway. They had this is a water supply reservoir, which was built by the Fort Smith, City of Fort Smith Utilities. They revised and updated the reservoir to raise the elevation of the dam, put in a new emergency spillway, and that construction has caused some issues. So what we did was my staff went out and did a geological mapping project and also mapped the landslides. And we did this a little differently because the Atoka is an undifferentiated formation. We considered describing the strata lithologically because it's undifferentiated. We wanted to see about correlation elsewhere. And as you can see, again, this is all Atoka here. And at the bottom here, you can see highly structurally influenced, a lot of faulting in here. So imagine, if you will, a high hazard dam with a lot of faults going through here. There's one fault which is regional. It's called the Drake Creek Fault, which runs kind of northeast and southwest. So here's the landslide that we were called out for in December. That landslide, I'm going to show with my cursor down here in the lower right-hand corner, which is where the landslide occurred. This is the emergency spillway up here. And as you can maybe see, there's this is highway, this red here is Highway 71. And the emergency spillway was put in right through here. And so what's happened, I'll show you that in a few pictures here. So here's some landslides in the watershed, pretty high up in the watershed, pretty steep, a lot of creep here. This is a boulder which has come down from one of the hills. Here I am for scale. This is part of one of the Atoka sandstone layers is fallen down. And this particular layer here is a clay, and it's found in 3 different areas within the watershed, in all 3 different depositional environments. So we're hoping to maybe use that for correlation, but we're not able to. And we had this analyzed, and it's 60% illite smectite, which could definitely contribute to some of the movement. This is what the Atoka formation looks like. And this is a map of the Lake Fort Smith watershed. And I'm going to kind of I apologize, the watershed boundary doesn't show up here very well, but my cursor is kind of going around the outside of it. Watershed. So we identified the landslides here, have identified them based on the age and the type. So the red here is a headscarp, and these different yellow colors are the different types of landslides and the ages as well. So here is a close-up of some of this faulting. And this is, there were a lot of grabens in through here. This is a really nice example of some of the faulting here. Here's the Drakes Creek fault that I talked about. Here's the dam here. And here is 71, this red line here. So what has happened is when they elevated the dam, they had to cut a new emergency spillway. And so what that did was cause this Atoka to start failing. And you can see it failed for several reasons. There's some faulting here. After they had to cut this, the engineering firm became painfully aware of how much faulting there actually was in here. So here's a better picture here. So here's the new emergency spillway. They had to cut all this out. So we identified some headscarps, and what's happening is now these headscarps are encroaching onto the highway right of way. So that's a concern. So here's these scarps I was telling you about, headscarps right near the highway, and here it is draining some of the water. As I mentioned, we're working with the Forest Service. Majority, I'd say 60% of the properties around the lake are U.S. Forest Service. And we're also working with planning and development districts in these landslide inventory. And another project we're working on are these Fema grants that I talked about. We have 2 3-year grants totaling about $65,000. It's covering Newton, Madison, and Washington counties, which is in the northwest part of the state. And our deliverables are going to include an update of the landslide portion of the all hazard mitigation plans for the counties and for the state. And we're following the state of Washington Bulletin 82 and our protocols for mapping doing the landslide inventory. So these are the 3 counties that we're mapping. The shaded gray, this was prepared some time ago. So the shaded gray areas are areas that have been identified as mass wasting. We're not done. So I wanted to show you the geology of this area. If anyone has ever floated on the Buffalo River, we've been able to do landslide inventory in several quads along the Buffalo. It's a beautiful stream to float in there. So this is in the northwest part of the state, and we're going to focus in on Boxley Quadrangle. Again, we have the Atoka, which is the green. We get into the Bloyd, which is these blues. The Prairie Grove, which is a purple, is a pretty resistant strata. And then the Cane is kind of this light grayish blue. Pitkin purple, and the Fayetteville brownish. So as you can see, the majority of these strata are relatively flat lying. And as you can see, the majority of the area is covered in these susceptible strata. The USGS mapped this, and they identified, so these orange blobs, polygons in here are the landslides that the USGS mapped. And we are in going through these quadrangles, we've been able to extend many of these footprints of these landslides. And I can say, I haven't actually done put a number to it, but I can say that the majority of this area that we're mapping, many of the landslides occur in the Pitkin. So we've been working real closely with USGS. Stephen Slaughter's been extremely helpful. Like I said, University of Missouri, Science and Technology, California, Berkeley, other states, Geological Surveys, National Park Service, Planning Districts, Forest Service, and on. We've also worked real closely with the Fort Smith City Utilities. We're going to share our shape files with them. and helping them out with, because when that event happened in 2015, their watershed or their lake, of course, it's a water supply reservoir and it has to meet EPA drinking water standards. So they were not able to meet the opacity and standards. So it took them 2 years to get back to meeting the EPA drinking water standards. And so this is going to help them manage their watershed. They own all the land immediately around the lake, but of course you can't manage things uphill. And what I wanted to do here, these next 3 slides are taken from our globe at an angle. And so I just wanted to point out to you the spatial distribution of the mass wasting. This is in the Moore Quad, which should be just east of the Boxley Quad. And as one can see, entire slopes are have been affected by the mass wasting. So this is the Moore Quad. Here's the Deer Quad, which would be a little bit south and east. Again, here's some slides here. Here's some here. And then this is the Boxley, a little bit different orientation where we can see a lot of flow in through here. And so the National Park Service, as I mentioned, is another organization that have been very helpful. We went out to visit the Irby Slide back in April with them, and also with the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, one of their professors and graduate students. We're probably going to be going out there next week. And this is a reactivated slide. You can see this was an old large slide. And we went back, like I said, in April, identified the slide headscarp as being up here. This is the slide. This would be looking to the northwest. And so our last thing I'd like to mention is next Sunday, we're going to be, or this coming Sunday, we're going to be having a field trip with one of the professors from University of Missouri Science and Technology and his PhD student, when we're going to visit about 6 slides in Arkansas. And the reason why, one of the reasons they're coming down is the PhD student had his dissertation in 9 quads within Newton County. One of which is Boxley, which I just showed you. This particular map is a U.S. Forest Service map that was presented to the U.S. Congress last week by the U.S. Forest Service, just giving the Congress an update on the slides occurring in Arkansas on the U.S. Forest Service. And so we're going to be visiting. So my contact within the U.S. Forest Service is going to be meeting us at several of these slides, and we're going to be visiting those, as well as the one in the National Park Service. And so some future landslide projects that I would like to work on is what I'd like to do is to age date some of the earthquakes to see if there is a common age with the pneumatic seismic zone. We're looking at possibly doing an OSL testing or dendrochronology. I've reached out to 3 professors whose specialty is dendrochronology, and they seem pretty excited about it. So we've done some publications, some fact sheets for landslides for homeowners. We've got the the mapping at Lake Fort Smith, the map for the geology and landslides, that's in progress. We're going to be doing a report and including the maps and all. And we had planned to do an outreach with the highway department. And then the pandemic came along, so that was kind of put on the back burner, but we do want to do that again. This is one of our publications on landslides. So some other landslide research going on in the state. I know University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, they're doing some research on highway resiliency, how resilient the state highways are to landslides and liquefaction. Also, the geology department is doing some research on the movement of the boulders, how the boulders are moving downhill. And just as a point of information, this is Lake Sequoia, southeast of Fayetteville. And it's kind of interesting how they design and build their houses. Where these people complained about a landslide on their property. This is an in-place boulder, and they just put their cinder blocks right on top of that boulder. And when we got there, they were doing construction, repairing some cracks. This is an addition. This is the original house. This is the addition. They were doing cosmetic repairs to this addition, and I got to look at that crack and look at this construction, and then here's how they're repairing the landslide. So kind of funny. So what I'd like to do is just to thank all those who have helped in the development of our program. USGS, Oregon Geological Survey, really appreciate their input, contributions, and I do welcome any comment, input, suggestions on any of our programs. So thank you.